You're listening to the PRO Media Network. The next level in entertainment.
Get ready. It's time for the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. Telling you everything you need to know about the Saints, Pelicans, and a whole lot more.
Welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. And we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports family. Once again, I'm Big Q, and on the line via Skype, we got DC chiming in. What's going on, DC? Been a while, my friend.
I'm all right, man. I'm trying to heal up from all these injuries like Alex Okafor, bro. That's about it.
I hear you, man. This Sports Coma episode 214, DC, and we're going to be covering that, my man. We're going to be covering that Alex Okafor injury, among other interesting Saints tidbits from training camp day number 21. We'll break it down for you today here on the Sports Coma. We also have a few other topics we're going to delve into with our Who Is Player segment. Of course, we'll cover one offense, one defensive player that you might not know, give you a little background on that unknown underdog Saint. We'll give that to you. And of course, DC astutely mentioned the Okafor injury. We'll give you an update on that and also talk about possible replacements in the light if Okafor isn't able to go when the season starts. Who can be the next guy or guys to step up and relieve him? So before we get going, I'd like to thank everybody for joining the Sports Coma episode 214 today. First of all, if you're a new listener, thank you for giving us a shot, and big ups to all our established big dog dedicated listeners of the Sports Coma. Let's get right into it. DC, Saints training camp day number 21, bro. A lot of stuff going on, man. A couple of guys that were not in attendance for this was PJ Williams, suffering from that rib injury that he received during the game. He's still out. Michael Human also didn't participate in practice. Now, this is good news. Now, of course, from the previous show, we talked about Cameron Meredith. Should we be concerned by the fact that he's not playing? Right after we did the show, guess who returned to practice? Cameron Meredith. So he's back in the fold. So did Marcus Davenport, who was suffering from that strained groin. He came back, but did not participate in any of the drills, but it was good to see some of those guys. But I know Cameron Meredith participated. Marcus Williams was there, but he didn't participate. So he getting close to coming back. Usually that's how they handle it. Of course, DC mentioned Alex Okafor. He walked off the field after getting that injury. And we'll talk about that injury after we get through the camp. We'll give you an update on what's going on with that. During this camp, obviously, and mostly done with just a helmet and shorts, basically an organized style practice. And they basically just dealt with the special teams in certain late game situations. Now, some notes to take aware of is the fact that Dan Arnold, the tight end, wide receiver turned tight end, and of course, Mitchell Lowen came back. They had good play during the special teams. Of course, they participated in the punt block drills, and also Jonathan Williams and Garrett Griffin, one of the Sports Coma's favorite guys, were up backs in the kick return game. And of course, you look at the highs and lows of everything in between, dealing with Tre'Quan Smith. He played well and had some good moments Wednesday. The good came when he could catch over Ken Crawley, which seems to be the norm for pull Ken Crawley before you walk it. It's just amazing, man. Ken Crawley, we just always have some great stuff to say. But Tre'Quan Smith had a pretty decent Wednesday. And, of course, Michael Thomas, Iron Mike Thomas, is another guy that always seems to step up. He played pretty good as well. Caught a couple of passes, cross coverage, and, of course, made people look kind of crazy. That's just what Mike Thomas do. He's a guy that catches everything no matter what way you send him. He's catching, and Mike Thomas continues to show up big in camp. Taysom Hill looked comfortable in the preseason opener, but he played pretty good on the 7-on-7 drills. He had 2 incompletions during the hurry-up session. Tre'Quan Smith should have caught both passes that Hill threw to him. He's a guy that is still making progress in camp. Okay, Cameron Meredith nearly made a catch on the sideline during a portion of the practice, and he looks good coming back, finally seeing that big target back there, big upgrade to the Saints wide receiver core to have him and Traquan Smith back and actually competing and giving help to the wide receiver depth. Them guys just need to stay healthy. Now, Trey Hendrickson had another sack in practice, and he looks good. Tight end Ben Watson settled back and quickly got back into things after missing some times with a injury that was unlisted. The thing about Ben Watson is he's been a steady, calming influence in the tight end room. He's just been a solid cap for Ben Watson. He's been the same work light guy, and I think Ben looks better than he did when he was here the last time around. He's just like wine, fine wine. It gets better with age, and Ben Watson is a model of consistency. Okay, safety Kurt Coleman had an impressive pass breakup over Ben Watson. Safety Marcus Williams, not to be confused with cornerback Marcus Williams. He broke up a couple of passes, and of course Keith Kirkwood, who we spotlighted on the last show, made a good catch down the sideline with P. Rob guarding him. So that was some of the particulars of Wednesday's day 21 camp of the Saints training camp. DC, anything in particular you want to mention from day 21 that caught your ear?
Taysom Hill, man. I think that preseason opener that he had and the way that he performed is kind of setting a fire under him, and he's getting real comfortable being a quarterback. He did pretty good in the 7-on-7s, and the incompletions that he had was basically drop passes. So I'm very encouraged by what I saw with Taysom Hill, man. That would be the thing that stood out for me, I would say, the most. And as well as Cameron Meredith being back in practice is also something that stands out. Everybody was in an uproar about a tweet he put out about overcoming obstacles and all of this stuff, quoting a Bible verse, and they thought maybe he may have been injured badly again or suffered a major setback. So after he put out his so-called cryptic tweet, it's good to see him back at practice pretty much like a few days after that. So that's very encouraging, and I think we're going to have a strong wide receiver rotation.
No doubt about it. Cameron Meredith is definitely on his way back to becoming full strength, working his way in. The Saints being real patient with him, and rightfully so. But they also have the cushion to it, all that depth that the Saints have at the wide receiver room, as well as we talk about Traquan Smith, all the great things that he's been doing in camp and the spectacular play he had against Jaguar in the first preseason game. Then, of course, is Keith Kirkwood, who continues to have a solid cap that a lot of people's talking about because of his size and speed and his catching ability. And he's doing some good things. And, of course, there's other guys that we want to see, like Austin Carr. And, of course, Tommy Lee, Jerry Lewis finally came back. And there are a few guys like Brandon Tate that's been showing up in practice as of recent as well. So the Saints have a bevy of good talent and depth at the wide receiver position. Let's talk about Alex Okafor.
I forgot to mention the most, that's probably the number one thing that stood out. Completely forgot to mention Okafor.
Okafor is a dude, man. Of course, that was the nugget of the day when he went down and silencing the whole building because, he's coming back off that injury. And, of course, he came back ahead of time. A lot of people didn't think Alex Okafor would be able to make it back on time like he did and be able to play. DC, he went down in camp today and limped his way off the field. Looked good, but all it seems to be, according to the updates that we're receiving, is he has a bone bruise and a slight sprained ankle. So that's pretty good news, don't you say?
Yeah, I say that's definitely good news. That's why I forgot to mention it because it's pretty much an afterthought. But when that went on during practice, man, it was pretty serious. Everybody thought it was initially something bad. He's walking off the field, throwing his mouthpiece, cussing. He's very upset, but he's walking off the field, So I'm very encouraged that it's only a bone bruise. So probably more than likely, I think he'll be ready to go week 1, maybe limited, but he was already going to be in a rotational role with all the depth that we got on the line. Anyway.
So he coming back from the torn Achilles, and like we said, he came back earlier. Teron Armstead says, quote, "It sucks for a guy coming back from the injury that he just came back from." And he also mentioned, I know the feeling, being hit with things back to back. It's a lot mentally, maybe even more than physically sometimes, end quote, by Terron Armstead. And of course, if anybody know about injury, it's damn sure Terron Armstead. And he's absolutely right on that. There's no timetable given for Okafor return, according to the report. Of course, we know that the Saints are more than likely going to shut him down for the rest of the preseason. They'd be wise to.
Yeah, we definitely can with the likes of Trey Hendrickson, and you still got Marcus Davenport. You got Devery Lawrence, Mitchell Lohan. You don't know how they're going to pan out into the line. You still got Al-Qadim Muhammad, if he can make it through. You got Kakaha. We got a lot of guys that could get you sacks, but Alex Okafor is probably our best perimeter rush
George
defender.
Johnson.
You got George Johnson, too. How can I forget him? He's probably the next guy up as far as our veterans. So we got a lot of people. You got Jaron Elliott, too. Got a lot of people, man, that can definitely come on in there and fill that role, but I don't think anybody can be a better edge defender as far as sealing the edge in the run game than Okafor on our team.
Well, I got to give it to you as it stands currently, right now. Currently, the best defensive end you have on the team opposite of Cameron Jordan is definitely Alex Okafor.
Correct.
You know, right now, without all the injuries and ready to step in and make an impact right now, it's definitely him. Perhaps down the line, it will become Marcus Davenport to complement Cam, but as it stands, as of right now, it's definitely Alex Okafor. So the Saints would be wise to shut him down for the rest of the preseason and get some other guys an opportunity to see what they can do. And perhaps this will bode well for a guy like Marcus Davenport, who has been able to get back to getting ready to go back to practice, DC, off that pulled groin. So it's a couple of injuries, of course, to Davenport. Remember, he had the hand issue, the head injury, and then he had the pulled groin. And finally, it seems like he's coming back to form. A lot of people was kind of upset about Marcus Davenport. They heard some of the people on the comment section calling him injury prone. That's a new one. I never knew Marcus Davenport as a player it was marked as injury prone. I mean, he hadn't had them kind of injuries in college, and it's just some things that happen with the hand issue and now with the pulled groin. But I don't think none of this stuff will keep Marcus Davenport from contributing. Eventually, he's going to get some play in there. What you think about that?
Oh, most definitely, man. I think this is a perfect time for him to show what he can do in the preseason, probably going into these last two games. He didn't practice today, so he's possibly not going to play Friday. But I definitely think with Marcus Davenport, we don't really know what we have with him. Like, we keep talking about how raw he is and this and that. You know, one thing about the Saints, as far as information that we give out on people isn't always accurate, especially when it goes to injuries. Thought it was very, very interesting that Sean Payton decided to comment on his injury. I was like, okay, it's new. He usually holds everything very close. So this could be one of two things. Maybe he will play Friday just out the blue because we're thinking he's shut down. Or maybe his injury was a little bit more serious than we thought, and we might not see him at all in preseason. Either way, I think Marcus Davenport is the type of player, once he gets on the field and he feels the game experience, you're going to be surprised to see what drills and everything can't simulate a real game. And I think defensive end is probably the hardest position to gauge during practice and during anything that's not a game scenario where everybody's going full speed where they're actually tackling, because there's no tackling in practice. So I'm definitely excited that whenever we get to see him in live game action, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
All right, well, that'll do it right there on that. The training camp day one breakdown, of course, when we're talking about Alex Okafor injury, breaking that down and his potential replacements if he can't go. Hopefully it's not as serious. But when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some more Saints talking issues. Of course, that Who That Is segment where we'll break down one offense and defensive player. Both Dan Arnold and Jaron Elliott will get the spotlight on the Sports Coma other side of the break. So stay with us. You listen to the Sports Coma, Big Q and the guys.
Forget ESPN or Fox. Get straight sports talk from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
What's up, sports world? The PRO Media Network is on a mission to reach 10,000 subscribers. So besides our regular programs like the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys, the Pelican Post Game Report, Rapid Fire TSC, and others, we will be expanding out and offering other content like movie, anime, and gaming reviews for your entertainment. So if you enjoy our content, please donate at our Patreon page. Also subscribe, comment, and share. And help the PRO Media Network reach 10,000 subs. Peace.
What's up, sports world? This Big Q from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. Talking to you about the website, theposhlifestyle.com. That's right, poshlifestyle.com. A great website where you can get great products at great prices. They sell organic herbs, vitamins, supplements, water filters for your home, EMF and cell phone radiation protection, healing magnetics and healing crystals, personal protection devices like cell phones, stun guns, and mace sprays, organic deodorants, shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, and more. They also sell 10A grade Brazilian hair. 10A music is available now. All kind of the latest downloadable mixtapes. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to theposhlifestyle.com. That's the Posh Lifestyle, life spelled with a Y, Lyfe style.com. Put in the Sports Coma for the 10% discount on your purchase. It's a win-win. So get your mind and body right with the Posh Lifestyle.
Follow the Sports Coma on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. We talking about the Saints training camp day 21. Just broke it down in the first segment of the show. This segment, we're doing the Who That Is segment where we'll be breaking down two players actually, one offense, one defense, some Saints players that you might not know that well. In today's show, we're going to be putting the spotlight on Mr. Dan Arnold, wide receiver turned tight end. And then our defensive player will be Jaron Elliott. We'll talk about on this side of the break. And then before we close out, DC will give you his take on a topic that he came across recently. So let's get right on into it. Now, of course, Dan Arnold is one of those players that intrigues a lot of people. Now, the Saints brought Dan Arnold in last year. Of course, you know, they brought him in and they shut him down. He got hurt last year, but he was signed out of Wisconsin Plattsville back in 2017. He spent the season on injured reserve. And then when he came back, the Saints had all this great depth, all this great talent at wide receiver. I mean, all this great talent from Mike Thomas, Ted Ginn Jr., Traquan Smith, Cameron Meredith. Then you have guys coming in like Brandon Tate, who came over. It's Michael Floyd that we didn't talk about. There's also Keith Kirkwood. It's Austin Carr. It's Tommy Lee Lewis. It was Traven Durrell at one time before he hit the IR. So they had a lot of terrific wide receiver depth. And Dan Arnold, guess what? He was buried on the depth chart in the wide receiver room. So somebody in the Saints brass had the great idea to say, hey, this guy is huge. He's 6'6", 220 pounds. Why don't we turn this guy from a wide receiver to a tight end? Let's try that. Let's turn him into a tight end. Whoever it was, they never said whoever it was, but of course, Sean Payton more than likely going to get the credit for it, being that he's the coach, and offense is more of his sticking point than anything else. But it turned out to be a very good move for the Saints and for Dan Arnold, who was a terrific player coming out of college, a 4-year letterman, played, like I said, for Wisconsin at Platteville. And he had some pretty good years, but I think his best year was his senior season, his most productive season, when he played in 11 games and finished with 65 catches for 1,176 yards. That's an 18.1 average with 16 touchdowns in that year. And he also had a pretty decent year in his junior year. But this guy has been a fantastic pickup for the Saints because of his size and his ability. He's got pretty decent speed, but the issue when you make the transition from wide receiver to tight end, the main thing is the blocking. pretty much is the blocking closer to the line of scrimmage. When you're a wide receiver, you're used to blocking pretty much defensive backs. But when you're changed to a tight end, you would have to definitely block defensive linemen and linebackers. So this was something that Dan Arnold, as it's seen in camp early on, he has some struggling with, but he's starting to get better. But his offensive game is there. He's catching, looking terrific in camp. But the issue that I was posing, the question that we all posed was, can he block? DC, talk to me about Dan Arnold, what you like about Dan Arnold and his abilities, how you think they would translate for him at the tight end move. Because it seems like to me, this was something, if I was thinking in my brain, remember me and you had this discussion many years ago, that if I was going to change any wide receiver to a tight end, my call would have been, before he was released, Brandon Coleman. I think Brandon Coleman would have been a really good tight end.
I think Dan Arnold has decent route running and great hands, man. That's the two abilities I see that allows him to transition over a Brandon Coleman who doesn't have either. But his ability to block is something that he has to completely pick up. He wasn't a horrible blocker. I mean, he isn't a horrible blocker now either. But with your comparison to Brandon Coleman's probably would have been a better blocker as a tight end than I think Dan Arnold. But we don't need him to block. We always need a catching tight end, but you got to be able to block. We don't want another Jimmy Graham fully. But I think Dan Arnold's size of being 6'5", and he packed on some weight really fast is what encouraged the Saints to be able to switch him over to receiver. And I think in the long run, man, it's probably going to look very, very good. He's making plays out there in practice all over the place, and we slowly can see him transition in a live game when you have Ben Watson and then you got Josh Hill in front of you. So you don't want to have a lot of pressure on him either. But he seems to be consistent. He's showing up every day, soft hands, and he runs good routes for tight end, man. So I think that with the addition of him being able to pick up blocking schemes and figure that out will definitely turn into at least a nice backup. At worst. At best, maybe a potential starter.
Well, I mean, that's good analysis because, of course, Dan Arnold was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I just wanted to throw a little tidbit in there as well. But Dan Arnold is definitely making the switch at the right time, because if you look at the Saints tight ends, all those guys are on 1-year deals. Unless the Saints sign a tight end in free agency, he might have a supreme opportunity out of all those guys to be able to catch on and really contribute in a major fashion. Because Hooman, man, we don't know what's going on with Hooman. At first, we thought Hooman could be back really soon, but this injury is really nagging and keeping him out of action. And the longest he out of action, more reps that Dan Arnold gets, and Dan Arnold is taking full advantage of those reps. So very interesting prospect we have in Dan Arnold, and I think he's going to stick around. He's going to stick around. The Saints seen a lot in this guy. His only issue is the blocking, so we'll have to just keep monitoring that. Let's go to our defensive player on the Who That Is list, and we'll talk about Mr. Jerome Elliott. Now, Jerome Elliott is a 4-year vet. Of course, Elliott came over. The Saints signed Jerome Elliott February of 2018. They signed him to a reserve future contract. He was waived by the Cowboys back in 2017. He was acquired by Dallas from Green Bay in exchange for a 7th-round draft pick. And, of course, he signed a 1-year deal with them. He had, like I say, he's a 4-year veteran out of Toledo. He's about 26 years old, 6'3", 255 pounds, double nickel. He wears number 55. Looking at the stats for Jerome Elliott, he's been a 4-year vet. Of course, he's played in 39 games, has a combined tackle total of 57 of them, 9 assisted. He has 4 sacks in his 4-year career, 1 interception, and a couple of pass defenses. So Jerome Elliott, mostly in reserve duties, never started a game in his 4-year career. And like I said, 39 games he's played, no starts, mostly as a reserve or a situational player between Green Bay and Dallas. So now the Saints catch on with Jerome early, and yeah, they sign him and bring him in DC. And he's a guy from the Cleveland area. He played for the Toledo Rockets. He's actually was a pretty decent player during his time. He's a 4-year player there. He played in a total of 47 games with 12 starts at the defensive end position. He finished his career with 124 tackles, 7 of them solo, including 22.5 tackles for loss. He had 14 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, and 4 pass defense. As a senior in 2013, he earned first-team All-MAC honors after starting all 12 games and recording 70 tackles, 43 solo, his third highest total on the team, and notched a team high in tackles for losses with 14 of them suckers. So he had a niche for getting in the backfield. Same thing we see in the current day. He has 9 sacks that year and 5 forced fumbles, and of course he had 2 of them in the game. So some things just translate if you're Jayrone Elliott. Of course, like we said, Jayrone's from that part of the country. He's a guy that was born, matter of fact, in Cleveland, Ohio. He's a guy that had a pretty illustrious career personally at a high school level too, winning, earning first team all district and also third team all state honors as an athlete. He even had a little career in basketball as well. So the guy is an athlete. DC, looking at Jayrone Elliott, of course, it's easy to talk about him now because he was the player of the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people didn't see much from him when the Saints brought him on, but talk to me about what what the scouts used to call a hybrid linebacker, a hybrid player, as they would call him, which is a guy that could play defensive end and he can also play linebacker. We've been looking for a guy like that. I guess you could say, now correct me if I'm wrong, the way I see Jayrone Elliott, I don't want to throw this bad karma on it, but in some instances, he kind of reminds me of like a Junior Galette. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of reminds me in some facets of his game of Junior Galette. But what do you think about Jayrone Elliott?
I see 25% of Von Miller. Yeah, I don't really see Junior Galette, but I guess that's a fair comparison. Jayrone Elliott to me is the wave of the future, much like the NBA is going where they're doing everything from perimeter and they're creating a positionless atmosphere. The NFL seems to be following the same format as you pointed out to me, noticing this with the kickers. Baltimore had a punter/kicker in the preseason. I think a lot of teams are going to guys that can play multiple positions, much like the NBA has transitioned that way. The NFL is transitioning in this way. Jayrone Elliott is one of those guys that's like the wave of the future, but you pretty much have a 3-4 linebacker that can play in the 4-3. So that's very unique. Just like having a 4-3 DN and a Cam Jordan that could play as a 3-4 DN. So Jayrone Elliott is a guy that fits that mold, and I think he has excellent ability to get to the quarterback and pull the ball out, as we all noticed. I mean, he did it twice. I mean, he nearly made the guy fumble twice in back-to-back series. So that's very impressive to me, even if it is scrubs, because it shows his ability to be able to execute and to have the mindset to go after the ball. So he seems to be a guy that could possibly turn into something real nice here, man. A rotational player, nevertheless, because we have a very deep rotation at the defensive line position. But I'm just curious to see what he can do going forward. He hasn't even made the team yet, but he looks to be a guy that is going to be very hard to push out of here because he has all the tools to get to the quarterback. We've got to pay more attention to see what he does in the run game, but he can definitely get after the quarterback, and that is a highly coveted ability.
That is the highly coveted ability. That's what I see from him, that he has that same capacity that Junior Galette is, the ability to be disruptive, to always live in the backfield. Like Alex Jenkins was another guy we'll talk about. We'll spotlight him on the next show. The talent, the ability, the skill, as you were, to be able to get past linemen and make it hard. Even when he's being blocked, he has the presence of mind to be able to use those long, rangy arms to reach and strip at the quarterback to make his life uncomfortable. So Jayrone Elliott is very special talent that the Saints, once again, we got to give them credit. The scouting report, the scouting guys, the scouting department were able to find these diamonds in the rough. Devereaux Lawrence, Jayrone Elliott, these Mitch Lowen and the rest of these terrific, talented defensive players and even offensive players to add to the team, quality players to add to the team. Most people just seem to miss, and the Saints continue to be the top of the league in finding that talent. But anyway, let's move on ahead, DC. We get to the part of the show. It's the last segment of the show. We're going to turn it over to you. You want to talk about a topic that kind of raised awareness of your mindset. What's going on?
I was just seeing a lot of pressure, I guess, from the Saints, so to speak, of actually making a deep run, man. I mean, I think so many times guys like us, we're covering this, but you don't realize how close you could be to actually a very magical, historic moment. I think the Saints have a 3 or so year window to do something real special here, and maybe they can do something real special more than once. Who knows? But you got Drew Brees, who's on the end of his career at 39. He's talking about training with pitchers to extend his career, and he's saying other stuff that, well, last year was the first year he said, let's play like it's your last year. And then we see all the moves the Saints have been making. We got a young core for the first time since the Sean Payton era. We've tried to assemble not just a decent defense, we're trying to assemble a top-notch defense. And I think the Saints are putting themselves in position, man, to not only chase a Super Bowl, which we have a Super Bowl window, of course, but we're building a strong foundation to constantly be a winning franchise. And the days of the paper bags, to me, for as the moves I've seen them make this year and some last year, going into possibly winning for the next decade, even once Drew Brees hangs them up, man. And it's just something I've been thinking about, noticing where we're at and what we're attempting to do is very monumental. We went from a small franchise to, I mean, there's Saints people all over the nation, man. And as I was researching today, I was just pondering all that, and I just wanted to throw that out there. It's like the first time I can remember I heard Vegas, they say, a lot of people are putting money on the Saints to win the Super Bowl. And I've never heard that my whole life as a Saints fan. Even the year that the Saints won the Super Bowl, they were pretty much had like 1,000-to-1 odds or something the year that they won it. So it's very unique, and it just shows to how far we've came, and we're here to stay. Days of the paper bags are over, and I don't think they'll ever be back. Hopefully not my lifetime.
Well, that's good commentary there, DC. Hopefully, yes, we're going to be good for a very long time. Even though Drew Brees is playing in the twilight of his career, the Saints have a very young, talented team, defensively and offensively. They just need to find a signal caller at least halfway as competent as Drew Brees, perhaps 70, 60 or 70%, 75% as competent as Drew, to keep the good times rolling in New Orleans. But Drew, if he keeps playing at this level, he could play for another 2 or 3 years. Hey, why not? Tom Brady said he's going to play until he can't stop, and he trains his butt off. So, and Drew Brees is one of the best players in terms of training that I've seen in the league, and his longevity and attention to maintaining his body. Drew Brees is, you consider him an Iron Man. But that'll do it for the show. Thank y'all for listening today. As always, if you enjoyed the show, please feel free to donate to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/the PRO Media Network. Also, subscribe to our social media pages at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Those links are below in the description section. And as always, please feel free to share our show, post it on Reddit, Facebook, all the forums, Saints forums, whatever, to help us get more exposure. So thank you for joining us. For me and DC, peace.
Forget ESPN or Fox. Get straight sports talk from the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys.
Thank you for listening to the Pro Media Network, who provides hours and hours of free edutainment to you and yours. If you are benefiting positively from our content, please donate to help us grow our platform by going to www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network. That's www.patreon.com/the Pro Media Network, and support the true independent artists.
In today's world, children are bombarded with negativity on television, online, and at school. Our kids need to have a positive outlook on life and the world around them. I want to share with you a valuable resource you can use to bring positivity into your child's life. It's the new book, 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad G.J. Barabino. This is a simple guide loaded with wonderful and inspirational affirmations designed to uplift young people's spirits. This positive and powerful children affirmational is chock full and loaded with wonderful inspirational sayings that will lift your child's self-image to whole new levels through the awesome power of spoken word. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image, from author and dad G.J. Barabino. Available on Amazon. Order a copy for yourself, your child's teachers, or anyone you know with children. 101 Powerful Children Affirmations, a guide to positive child self-image. Order your copy today.